Well, hello.
Hi.
How are you doing, Erin?
I'm so good. How are you, Yuki?
I'm doing great, great. And thank you for this
Awesome.
time to
Thank
connect with
you.
me. Yeah, I'm really excited because I this is it's something that is of interest to me personally, but
Hmm.
to be able to share what you do with my group, my friends and people that are, following the space here. Um,
Yeah,
I think it's wonderful opportunity for people to hear what you do.
thank
Um,
you.
yeah, yeah. Tell me first of all, tell me the name of your business.
Well, I have a podcast that's called
Podcast.
The Business of Inner Peace. And then I also run a coaching program for women that are in difficult marriages. And it's called There's a Third Option
Awesome.
because there
Third option.
is. There's a third option.
Third option.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? Because, we often think we only have two choices. It's this or that.
Yes, I know. Every place, it happens a lot of places in life where our perspective gets us narrowed down to two choices, even in
Yeah.
politics, right?
I
It's
was
like,
just gonna say that. It's like, really? Is this what we have?
I mean, I'm totally not political and not going to get into any of that, but I just think it's funny that it's like the way
Right.
it's always presented at us is like two choices.
Yes, it's two
And
choices.
really, there's like a million choices, but
Right.
I just really have this passion in my heart to let women know like there is a third option because in marriage, that's kind of how you feel. It's like I have to stay miserably married or I have to get divorced. That's
Yeah.
it. There's only these two options, and there's a third option.
And I love that. I love that. And because it's not just what we feel, but it's also what we think, but it's also other people kind of reaffirming like, oh, if you make this choice, then you must be blah 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 blah. You must be the
Yes,
kind of person da da da. So it further embeds you into this. Oh my God, like, am I being this way? And you can't make it's or it can't. I should say can't, but you. It's hard for you to make the third choice, even
hmm,
because people will talk you out of it.
yeah. Well, and it's so interesting. Like I've really realized over the past few years how people just want you to be in a box. They really want you to fit all of the pieces of a certain box. And I think that none of us do. Like nobody fits in a box, but we'll kind of lie even to ourselves out of the sake of feeling more comfortable with our friends and society. We'll try to like put ourselves in a particular box. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. It's just like
Totally,
you
totally.
get you get that fear, right? Of like, oh, if I do this thing, then people are going to think this about me and it won't align with this box, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's like, who's making up the boxes anyway?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so made up. So
It
so.
is. It's totally made up.
Okay, so now my question is, can you tell me your own personal story? Like, what had you get into this work and,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. I
yeah.
would love to tell you my journey. I will try to make it as short as I can. But feel free to ask questions along the way if you want.
Okay. Yes.
um, so it's funny, you have to really reflect about the beginning, right? And for me, as a little girl, I always dreamed of being married with seven kids. No joke. I wanted seven kids, which I know sounds crazy now, especially in the Bay Area. I don't have seven children, by the way. I only have three. But I have this vivid memory of my very first wedding. It was in first grade out on the playground at recess. I married Jeremiah McKay, and my best friend and I, we made these little flower headbands for the wedding. And all of our friends like tore up flowers into little petals. And after we said I do, they like threw them at us. And totally this magical moment. And it just makes me laugh because that was like what I was wanting to do with my spare time as a little girl. I was always kind of focused on that. And all kidding aside, I truly wanted this idea of being married and building a family. And at the young age of 24, which I know is super young for people, especially now, actually did get married. I said I do. And I thought I was starting this like magical journey of happily ever after. And pretty darn fast within the first year of marriage, things got like really, really, really hard. And I didn't realize what was happening at the time. I now have the knowledge and perspective to kind of name it all. But essentially, my husband was verbally and emotionally abusive. And I spent about 18 years in this marriage with him of just not knowing how to make it stop and doing everything I could to figure it out, right? So I was begging family and friends to help us. I was going to years and years and years of therapy, both by myself and dragging my husband. We tried a few different failed marriage retreats. I read lots and lots of like self help books on marriage, and nothing was changing it. Nothing was really working. So finally, in October of 2020, I mustered all of my bravery and courage, and I made a really hard choice, and I filed for a divorce. And pretty darn quick, things got even worse. It was like the most stressful, awful thing I've ever lived through. I'm like, my heart goes out to anyone who's experienced divorce. I think it's a very difficult thing to make it an easy thing. And I know some people accomplish it pretty well, but it was hard and painful. Like we were in debt fast because divorce lawyers cost thousands and thousands of dollars just to like retain them, not even to have them do anything for you. And we had that. We were dealing with child visitation. We were dealing with our, family members outside of us that were very unhappy, especially with me, because I was the one that made the decision for this, right? And then we like went into the holidays, right? If you're thinking about the timing of all, I started this in October. It was the most miserable like Thanksgiving and Christmas I've ever had. And I started to fall into this really deep depression and I began to battle just suicidal thoughts. I really started to feel like if I could just take myself off this planet, like everyone will be better. And um, I kind of just hit this point where I was like, this is stupid. Like I was miserable with him and I'm even more miserable without him because I'm dealing with all of this stuff, right? And the financial stress of trying to support my kiddos and stuff. And so I reached out to him in January of 2021 and was like, can we just try this again? Because my thinking was, if I'm going to be miserable no matter what, I might as well be miserable with him because then at least I'm not putting my kids through this and I don't have the financial stress, right? So he agreed to give it another shot. We came back together. Kid you not, just 2 short weeks into being back together, we go to Monterey to celebrate his birthday. We have this terrible fight down there, and I end up just sobbing on the bathroom floor of our hotel room, like spent the entire night there, just like doing battle in my mind. And I had this moment where it was just like clear as a bell. I was like, the problem is me because I don't love myself. Like if I loved myself, I would never let anyone treat me this way. And I just felt so broken. And I became laser focused on I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how to love myself. And of course, it's not easy because there's not like a course you can take. There's not just like read this book and you'll figure out how to love yourself. It's it's this nice idea that everybody talks about, but how you do it, it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know how you really do this. So mentally, I made a list of everything I tried, and I knew it didn't work. And I said, I'm not doing any of that. I refuse. I refuse to do any of that. And so I got really open to like things that are super just non traditional. And lo and behold, out of nowhere, this random friend on Facebook sends me a message and she says, do you want to do a session with me? I was like, I don't even know what she does. Like, I don't even know what she's talking about. But yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll do a session with you because I was just like so open to whatever. Right. Well, now being in this spot, looking backward, that session it changed my life. Like, it was powerful. It felt very much divine. Like God showed up for me in that session in this really amazing way. And I wanted more of that. And so she offered this program to me to work with her through that whole summer. So I've just worked the whole summer and I started to understand a lot about the subconscious mind. And I had these huge ahas of realizing my own subconscious programming from childhood. It was keeping me stuck in these like unhealthy patterns, specifically with my husband. Like I was doing these patterns on repeat, but also these other people in my life, like really other relationships that were very unhealthy. And so I kind of like geeked out. And I have this personality when I find something that I fall in love with, I just like go all in. And so I started just gobbling up anything that I could learn about the subconscious mind. I became like a huge fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I was just gobbling up as much as I could. And the other part of my nature that is very true, I've always have had a heart to help people. I really genuinely love helping people and connecting with them. And so the cool thing, which I almost forgot to tell you, is like the happy accident of all of this is yes, I figured it out. I learned how to love myself. I can genuinely say, I love myself. I'm awesome. I'm so thankful for who God made me to be. Um, but what was so cool, which I wasn't expecting, is I love my husband. He completely changed, Yuki. He completely changed. I say now that like I'm married to the same man, but he's not the same man, and I'm not the same woman. And it blew my mind because like he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything at all. I was doing all of this work. And this is what's cool about this kind of work is when you do this, the people around you, when you change yourself to this level, everyone around you starts to change. It's like old patterns become impossible to run because you're so different. Like you're not going to do it anymore, right? You refuse to participate. So I guess kind of in that vein of wanting to help others, I like was curious, like, was this just like a fluke? Like this is just the magical miracle that happened for me, or would it work for like someone else? So slowly but surely, I had some of my mom friends that were also not very happily married. And I asked them if they'd be willing to just like try what I tried. And just, I had all these little steps laid out. And so one by one, I was teaching them all the things. And one by one, their husbands started to change, their marriages started to change. And I realized, like, oh my gosh, this was not a random miracle. This is a very repeatable process that I can share to change lives. And for me, it's not just about helping somebody not be miserably married anymore, right? Like every family unit, for the most part, has some kiddos attached and family members around. And like when we save marriages, we totally change and impact futures for children and for just surrounding family members. And it's a big deal. You know, you feel like it's just the two of you, but you don't realize how big of an impact the two of you have on the world around you. And so, you being together or not, it really does matter and it makes a difference. So, I got really excited about doing this like full time. And so, I'm now a relationship coach and I have a program with these repeatable steps. In fact, I spent 2 years making my own method. I call it the Radiant Love Revival Method because that's just fun. That's more fun, right? And I bring women through, I have a 90-day program that I bring them through and just help change lives. So if you are interested, to all of your friends out there that are listening and watching, I have a free masterclass that I wanted to offer to you just to invite you to, where I teach you the 3 steps that smart women take to save their marriage. And you can go to Erin Jean, which is my name. So ErinJean love.com. And you can watch the free masterclass. And I'd just be honored to to talk with you one on one. If anybody out there is really hurting, we don't have to work together, but I want you to be heard. I always say my mission in life is for people to walk away from time with me feeling seen, known, and loved. And so if you just need that, like sometimes you just need someone to see you and to listen to you, honestly happy to do it.
Wow. That is incredible. I loved your story. Like it's a it, it's almost like a hero's journey. Your other people,
Yeah,
your
I'm like,
your-
I do actually always say that, um, that I spent a long time unhappy, right? And my mentality around it, I was waiting for someone to save me. I kept thinking that someone was going to like see what was happening and make it stop and save me. And the truth was, I was waiting for me. I
yeah.
was waiting for me to show up. So
Wow. I'm
I am
getting
the hero.
it's incredible. I think one of the biggest reasons why people don't or can't change is because it's like the frequency that we're kind of like running in, and
Hmm.
everybody matches it and reflects it back to you. So like you think that is reality and that's the way it is.
Yeah,
But once you change, whether you call it frequency or your mentality, whatever, right? Do you change you,
yeah.
and you start tuning into a different level of frequency. So you start noticing things differently.
Hmm.
Things that bothered you, it doesn't affect you because you're just on a different wavelength. Like you're not
Yeah,
attached to the things that used to trigger you before. And so
yeah,
kind of like run off, like it's like, what do you call like water off a camel's back? It just doesn't bother you. And you start paying attention to other things. And so that becomes your reality. And you start creating other people, you know?
yeah,
So it's like this mentality that we think the world is the way it is out there and you're just there to observe it and engage with it. But it's actually the world around you and your reality that you live in. It's not actually separate. You're actually creating at the same time.
absolutely.
That,
100%. Well,
yeah,
and I think what most people don't realize is how much the way our subconscious is wired, right? It's coming from childhood and it's wired for safety and survival. And when I say safety, it just means like whatever happened to you as a little kid is what it wires as safe. So it could be
right.
horrible. It could be
Yes.
horrible, like not safe at
It's just
all.
familiar.
Just familiar. And your mind wants to do that on repeat for the rest of your life because it's like, oh, she survived. So let's keep this going. And if you don't have that awareness, right, it can be so frustrating because it's with anything. We're sort of taught this idea that you could just have willpower. Like if you get enough willpower, you can change yourself. But the truth is, like, there's no amount of willpower that
Yeah.
will ever change your programming.
Yes.
But what changes it, because it's not that it's impossible to change, right? It's like kind of starting where you said, like, notice what you're noticing. Having awareness is like really kind of step one. And then there's all these amazing subconscious healing tools that we tap into that actually rewire your brain so that you're not stuck in the programming anymore, which is like,
Yeah, the reaction, and then it creates more of the same, and then you get more of the same thing back, and it's like a ping
totally,
pong going back and forth.
it is. It's a vicious cycle you can get stuck in,
Exactly.
but once you
Right.
have awareness, you can get out of it and above it and change it all.
Yeah.
So,
And but you're talking about the step beyond the awareness, because a lot of people do have awareness, but they just don't know what to do with that
hmm,
awareness. And you
yeah,
and you provide that, whether it's can you tell me a little
a
what
tiny
is
bit.
practice and what is like what can you tell to someone who is considering, or let's say they're not even going to sign up and they're like, what can you tell me that I could do right now, a small
Hmm.
little practice, or I don't know, mantra, whatever that could be
Yeah,
right
totally. I think one of the most helpful tools, and I share it a lot on my podcast, is learning how to basically regulate your nervous system. Um, so, a huge aha for me is understanding when I got triggered, right? any kind of trigger puts you immediately into that fight, flight, or freeze, right? So your adrenaline's up and your brain gets flooded with all of these hormones and chemicals, and you can no longer think clearly. So the front part of our brain helps us have like logic and reasoning and decision making. And the back part of our brain is where that fight, flight, or freeze is. It's our primal brain. What's super interesting to know is that they can't run at the same time. So you're either in the front or you're in the back. And I found this kind of fascinating, especially during when we were sort of in COVID. So if you're in fear, you're automatically in the back, right? Which means you can't use the front. You can't have logic and good decision making, but you can follow directions. So when you're in primal brain, you can only like do whatever you're told, which kind of helped me understand why they were able to get so many people to just like do what they were told during that time because people were in fear and so they can't use the front part of their brain. um, so this is helpful in marriage, right? Because if you just got triggered, you're in your primal brain, you can't like have a rational conversation with your spouse and like make good decisions because you're triggered, right? And you're in the back. So understanding that is huge. And what you need to know is it takes a minimum of 20 minutes to get those chemicals out of your brain and kind of get back to the frontal cortex. And the number one thing you cannot do is scroll on your phone. So if you're in that, don't scroll on your phone because it will keep all the chemicals going and keep you in your primal brain. You can't like pick up the phone or talk to a friend and tell them the story about what just happened because you're staying in it, right? And
Yeah.
it won't help your brain get out of it, which, if you think about it, like those are the two things that most of us do. Think about like having a big fight, something triggered you. So you're like you just you think you're trying to distract your brain by
Right.
scrolling on your phone. You're making it worse. You have no idea. Or like for me, I'd like pick up my phone for my sister, like, you won't believe what he just did. Right. And then I was staying in it. So learning tools to calm the nervous system, which the easiest thing is like put down all electronics and go outside. Like go outside and be barefoot in the grass, right? Just ground your body. Within 20 minutes, your everything will settle down and you'll be back to that frontal cortex. So there's lots and lots of ways to learn to calm your nervous system. And in my program, I teach a ton of them because I think it's kind of like food, right? Like, ooh, I love strawberries, but she hates them. Like you have to figure out what do you like, what really works well for your brain. But just having that awareness is a huge first step of, oh my gosh, I don't want to stay in fight, flight, or freeze. I need to give myself a minimum of 20 minutes. It could take as long as an hour. Sometimes people stay in fight, flight, or freeze for days because they're just harped in all of this yuckiness. So that's a tool that I would say anybody could do today.
Yeah. And would you just say that, because the scrolling thing, and it's like, you call like, what am I saying? The distraction, right?
Hmm.
But it could be any number of things, like from drinking, eating, anything to distract you. And
Hmm.
it feels like just a bandage for the time being, but it keeps the pattern in place, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely keeps it in place. So it kind of depends what the coping mechanism that you're going to is.
Mhm.
But like I said, I offer a lot of different tools because we all are so uniquely made, and
Sure.
learning what works for you and
Right.
giving you a lot of different things to play with, right? To figure out like, oh my gosh, when I tap, I teach EFT. So like when I start doing tapping, I calm down instantly and I'm able to kind of like get back into my day. And depending, like for me, I'm a mom, my youngest kiddo who's trying to break into this room right now. Like speaking of her, she's at the door. She's 6. And so a lot of this, right? It's like, think about how much more overwhelming that is when you have little kids that are at you and you're triggered and you're trying to like the faster you can get out of that for them, if not just for yourself, right? How much that matters. It's huge. So I can't recommend that type of work enough.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Erin. And I love that.
Yeah.
Of course, this work itself is really amazing from what you shared, and also the fact that you provide different tools that will that is different for various types of people. Like you said, one might work for one, like a little practice could work for one that may not work for the other. And I think that's a skill that you bring. I think because you have
Mm,
that ability to connect with people and know them.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Well, thank you for just taking time and sharing what I do with your friends. I appreciate you doing
oh,
this
of
with me. It
course.
means the world.
I got a lot out of it myself, and
Yay.
you'll be hearing from me after this.
I love it. Awesome. All right.
Okay,
Have a great day.
you too. Bye.
Bye.